Wakeji Kamore, and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. Can you guys believe it? We have gone through 5 books of the Bible so far. We have been able to go through the book of Genesis, the book of Exodus, the book of Leviticus, the book of Numbers, and now we just finished the book of Deuteronomy. Oh my goodness, that is 187 chapters. That is 187 lessons that I hope that we've taken with us and that we are actually applying them in our lives. If you're here for the very first time, you're wondering, what is that girl going on about? What is this girl talking about? So beginning of this year, I think it was somewhere mid-January, we started a Bible summary, or I started a Bible summary where I post a chapter every day, a chapter of the Bible every day. I read through it, I give my lessons. Sometimes when it's longer, I do a summary, and then I give my lessons that I have taken from the chapter, and we have been able to successfully go through 5 books of the Bible. So I'm here to thank God, of course, for giving me the strength and the grace to do that. I am here to thank myself for staying committed to this journey. Wakeji, I thank you for staying committed in this journey. And I'm also here to thank my viewers for watching and for being part of this journey, for starting with me when I was doing podcasts, moving with me as I started doing the videos, and it has been such a great adventure. So if you're here for the very first time, kindly remember to subscribe, to like, to comment, and to hit the notification bell so that you're able to receive able to receive a notification every single time I upload a video. And for you who have been here since the very beginning, I can never thank you enough. I can never say thank you enough. But you know what? I know a God who can bless you. I know a God who can exalt you. And I know a God who can give you a joy that is not dependent on the situations that are happening in your life. And that is my prayer for you. So thank you so very much for being part of this journey. So as it is my norm, I like to always, wrap up a book when we are done with it. I like to always do an overview of a book that we have just finished before we can jump into the new book. So that is what this specific video is about. We're about to just wrap up Deuteronomy nicely, tie a bow on it before we can actually just go and unwrap the book of Joshua. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly run through an overview of the book of Deuteronomy, and then I'm going to share the main lessons from the book, and then we can start the book of Joshua. How great is that? So I'm going to ask you a few questions, or rather I'm going to ask myself a few questions and answer them. But I know that you have the answers to these questions because we have covered them. So consider this like an end of term exam. This is your end of term exam for the book of Deuteronomy. So first, who wrote the book of Deuteronomy? It was written by Moses, but at the end, actually, I've done some studies and it shows that the end of the chapter, or the last chapter, must have been written by someone different, because there's no way you can be writing about how you died and how you are buried by God. As in, that's what the last chapter is about Moses dying. So it can't have been written by Moses, but he wrote all these other chapters. It is most likely that the end of the chapter, or rather the last chapter, was actually written by Joshua. That is a high likelihood. So where are the Israelites on this journey as the book or rather the stories or the events of the book of Deuteronomy are happening? So the Israelites have already left Egypt. They have trekked wilderness. They have done that, or things that have had consequences of them wandering in this wilderness for 38 years. And right now they are at the plains of Moab. And the plains of Moab is where they can see that's Jordan River. If we cross it like this, we will be on the promised land. So they're really just at the verge of entering the promised land. And this is where the events of the book of Deuteronomy are happening. So what is the book of Deuteronomy about? The book of Deuteronomy is about retelling the laws. It's actually a repeat of the laws that were given in Numbers, the laws that were given in Leviticus, and some of the laws that were actually given also in Exodus. When the Israelites came from Egypt and they ended up at the foot of Mount Sinai, and there God gave the 10 commandments. He gave some additional laws. In Leviticus, he gave some additional laws, and Deuteronomy is actually retelling of those laws. So why are the laws being retold? Why is Moses taking so much time to retell these laws? Like, my goodness, you guys. Mbona mnaambiwa hizi laws tena? The reason why Moses is retelling the laws is because by the time the guys were in the wilderness, when Moses sent the spies, and then the 10 spies came and discouraged the people, God said that generation will not enter the promised land. So now Moses has a whole new generation. This whole new generation were either very young when God was giving the laws, the 10 commandments, when God was rescuing them from Egypt. They were either very young or they were not even born. So that is why Moses retells the laws for the sake of this new generation that was not there when the Red Sea was being parted, when God was giving the commandments, when God was giving the Levitical laws. So they were not present, or they were very, very young, and that is the reason why Moses is having to retell the laws. So what are the main events that happen in the book of Deuteronomy? I don't know, there are many two events, but the book of Deuteronomy is basically just a speech. It's actually Moses' last speeches. It's divided into three main sermons or main speeches, and the main events that happen, the two main events that happen in the book of Deuteronomy is that Joshua is elected to be the new leader, and he is commissioned to be the new leader, and then also Moses dies and he is buried by God. Those are the two main things that actually happen in the book of Deuteronomy. So that's basically just like an overview of what the book of Deuteronomy is about. But if I was to summarize this book of Deuteronomy, if I was to summarize it into 3 words, I would use 3 words. I would use identity, I would use the word warning, and I would use the word responsibility. And this is basically how those speeches or sermons of that by Moses are divided. They're divided into 3 parts. One of them is about identity, the other one is about a warning, and then the other one is about responsibility. So the whole book, as I've said, the book of Deuteronomy is built around these 3 sermons. And the first set is what I would call identity. So why am I calling it identity? In these sermons, Moses reminds the people of Israel of where they came from. He reminded them of how God rescued them from the harsh conditions and from slavery in Egypt through powerful signs and wonders. Then this set of sermons of identity is meant to instill in the people of Israel a sense of identity as the children of God. It is meant to remind them, you guys, you are here because God saved you from Egypt. You are here because you are chosen by God. You are here, and you are unlike all other surrounding nations. All other surrounding nations have been here. You have been rescued from Egypt, and you're completely different from other surrounding nations because you are a result of God's rescuing grace. You are as a result of God's forgiving grace, and you are as a result of God's restoring grace. Because you remember, God rescued them, they came and they did their 2 things. God has forgiven them, and now he wants to restore them, and he wants to give them the promised land. So it was to remind them of their identity, that they were children of God. And that was the first part, or the first division of the sermons that Moses gave. It was about reminding the children of God that they were children of God. It was about reminding them of their identity as children of God. So now, these children of God were about to go into this land that God had promised, and they were going to encounter all kinds of other identities. They were going to encounter all other kinds of nations. They were going to encounter all other kinds of, great armies. They were going to encounter all sorts of nations. So Deuteronomy, the second set of sermons, is about warning. It's a warning. It's a warning to the people of Israel that they are going to face people or certain nations that do idol worship, that worship idols, and they are going to be tempted to also worship idols. So Moses says it in this way. He says this. He says, you're going into the land that you did not get by your own power, in houses that you did not build, and in fields that you did not plant. This is the warning that Moses is giving the people of Israel. He's telling them, you're going into a land that you did not get by your own power, in houses that you didn't build, and in fields that you did not plant. And then he continues to say this to them. You are going to forget the God who gave all those things to you. Unfortunately, you are going to forget the God that gave you all those things, and you're going to worship false gods. So Moses is not just warning. It's actually very funny that in this statement where Moses is telling them, you're going into a land that you did not till, you're going to get into houses that you didn't build, cities that you did not build, but you're going to forget the God that gave you all these things. And you're going to worship false idols. As much as this is a warning about false idols, this is actually a warning about forgetting God. It is more of a warning about forgetting God, because forgetting God is the main root cause. It is the core. It is in the core of idol worship. Forgetting who God is, forgetting what God has done for you, is actually the main cause or the main core reason as to why people worship God. So Moses is not just warning them of the problem, he's warning them of what will cause this problem. So he's not just warning them of idol worship, he's warning them of the root cause of idol worship, which will be forgetting this God that has given them all these things, this God that has rescued them. You see, the thing is, idol worship doesn't just come from temptations. Unfortunately, it's not just a temptation. Idol worship starts from forgetting God. When you forget the magnitude of what God has done for us, when you forget the magnitude of who God is, when you forget the magnitude of the fact that God is the one who has brought you from where you were to where you are at now, then you are at risk, or you're vulnerable to actually start worshiping other gods. You are vulnerable and you're more inclined to begin to put other things in place of God. So this happens when you forget who God is. This happens when you forget what God has done for you. And when you forget that God is the only one who can sustain you at that place or even take you higher, that God is the only one who can keep doing the things that he has been doing for you, then you become vulnerable and you incline to replacing God with other things. You are more inclined to replacing God with, money, career, fame, status, and all those things that actually take up the place of God. So Moses, in the second set of sermons, is warning them, not just of idol worship, but what will lead to idol worship. That is amazing. And I feel like now that the people of Israel have been reminded of their identity as children of God, and they have been warned of the temptation to forget God and to worship idol, there lies the responsibility. So the last parts of the book of Deuteronomy, the last sermons or the last set of speeches that Moses is making, is reminding them of what their responsibility is. So now, yes, you are a child of God, and I've reminded you you're a child of God. I've also told you that you are in danger of worshiping idols if you forget who God is, what he has done for you, and if you forget that he's the only one who can sustain you and keep doing the things that he has done for you. So now that I have told you that, here is your responsibility. Your responsibility as a children of God is to commit to keep reminding yourself, of who you are, so that then you're able to live your life as a child of God. Your responsibility is to keep reminding yourself of who God is, what he has done for you, where he has brought you from, so that then, now that you have remembered who you are, you will be able to continually live your life as a children of God. You will be able to live out that identity, which is that you are a child of God. And that is basically what the last part is about. It's just Moses reminding them that yes, you're a children of God, and yes, you're going to be tempted to worship idols because you are going to forget who God is and what he has done for you. So your responsibility in this matter is to remind yourself of who God is. Your responsibility in this matter is to remind yourself of what God has done, so that then you can be able to live out your identity as a children of God. So that is just basically what the book of Deuteronomy is about, what the sermons are about. And in the same way, I like the fact that we can read stories that happened a long time ago, and we can learn from them. So in the same way that that it is our responsibility, in the same way that it was their responsibility, or the Israelites' responsibility, to remind themselves of what God has done, in the same way it is our responsibility to remind ourselves that this is what God has done for you. This is what God has done for me. He gave his son. And you keep reminding yourself that through the word of God, he has done this for me. He's given me peace. He has healed me. He has provided for me. He has protected me. He has taken care of me. And you keep reminding yourself through your word, so that when you're faced with temptation, that your identity or my identity as a child of God will shape the way I approach everything. It will shape the way I run my business. It will shape the way I spend my leisure time. It will shape the way I engage with people and how I treat other people. It will even shape the way I eat and the things that I eat and the way that I take care of my body. It will shape the way I think about money, where I invest my money. It will shape the way I treat my friends and how I go about my friendships and my relationships. It will basically shape everything. When we remind ourselves of who we are and we remind ourselves of what God has done, then that identity, that is that we are the children of God, will shape everything in our lives. It will shape the decisions that we make. It will shape the places that we find ourselves in. It will shape the conversations that we are having, and then it will shape everything. And that is how you live out your identity as a child of God. So the message in Deuteronomy is just as important today as it was important when Moses spoke it, or rather when Moses told it to the Israelites. Because to us it says, God gave his son for you. You have been bought with a price. So you are a child of God. There goes identity. And then it says, you will face idols. And you know, idols nowadays are actually modern idols. You will face idols. You will face other identities that want to fight with your identity and the things that you believe in. You will be tempted. But, so that's a warning. But, do not let yourself forget. Do not let yourself forget who God is. Do not let yourself forget what God has done for you, who he is in your life. So commit yourself to reminding yourself, to remembering that you are a child of God. And there goes responsibility. So identity, warning, and responsibility. These are the three words that summarize the book of Deuteronomy, the whole book of Deuteronomy. But if you forget everything else, I've said in this video, in the other 34 videos of the book of Deuteronomy and the 34 chapters in the book of Deuteronomy, there's a verse that I don't want you to forget. There's a verse in the book of Deuteronomy that I don't want you to forget. And that verse comes from Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19 to 20. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19 to 20. And this is what it says. It says this. It says, today, if you forget everything else, don't forget this verse. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19 to 20. It says, today I have given you a choice between life and death. You guys remember that verse? We read it. I've given you a choice between life and death, between blessings and curses. Now I call on heaven and earth to witness the choice you make. Oh, that you would choose life. Oh, that you would choose life, so that you and your descendants might live. You can make this choice. I like the way the Bible is like, okay, fine, we want to choose life. How do we do that? You can make this choice. You can make this choice by loving the Lord your God, by obeying him, and by committing yourself firmly to him. You can make this choice by loving the Lord your God, obeying him, and committing yourself firmly to him. This is the key to your life. And if you love and obey the Lord, you will live long in the land that the Lord swore to give to your ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So if you forget everything else in the book of Deuteronomy, remember this verse. This verse is basically saying we have been presented with life and death, blessings and curses. Oh, that we would choose life so that we can live for long, so that we can live a long life and enjoy the things that God has promised us, the things that God has already given us. But how do we choose life? We choose life by loving God and obeying him. So if you forget everything else, remember that we can choose life. And the way we choose life is by loving God and obeying God. So there you go, guys. That is the end of the book of Deuteronomy. We've wrapped it nicely. I feel like we've wrapped it nicely. We've gone through, we did a whole introduction. We've gone through all the 34 chapters, and now we've wrapped it nicely. We know what the book of Deuteronomy is about. What are the three main phases or what are the three main sermons that are happening in the book of Deuteronomy, and what is the main takeout, which is to love God and to obey him. So there you go, guys. We are done with the book of Deuteronomy, and finally we can start the book of Joshua. And as I have mentioned before, the book of Joshua, I have such a surprise for you guys. You will love it, you will enjoy it. And I know you're thinking, can we start already with the book of Joshua? Trust me, even I am thinking the same. I'm like, can we just start the book of Joshua already? But good things take time, Good things take preparation, so just kindly be patient, and we will start the book of Joshua on the 10th of October. So please mark that date. 10th of October is when we will be starting the book of Joshua. And if you're out there and you'd like to actually just be getting the reminder or be getting the link, the daily link that I send every day at 6 a.m., please just text me, write me a text with your full name, or actually write me a WhatsApp. That would be like the best. A WhatsApp with your full name, 2 names, not 1 name, 2 names, please. Write me a WhatsApp message with your 2 names, and then I'll put you in the broadcast where I actually send the link every single day at 6 a.m. So the link is sent every single day from Monday to Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday we take a break, and then we resume again the following week on Monday. So that is end of Book of Deuteronomy. I am so excited to start the book of Joshua, and I cannot wait for you guys to enjoy the book of Joshua, because it's just gonna be the bomb. You're gonna enjoy it. It's going to be a good surprise, and I just pray that you can stick around. If you're here for the very first time, stick around, so that then you can be able to just learn from the book of Joshua, and also just keep learning from the book of the book of God, because the book of God is just alive. It's such a fun book to read, and it's alive, and it comes alive also in our lives. So thank you so much for being part of this journey. See you on the 10th of October. And yeah, stay ready, stay ready. This has been your girl Wakeji Kamore, and this is Reflections by Wakeji Kamore.